Welcome back everyone to the final part of our Gatecrash review. We're now looking at Simic and the green cards. Last guild, so here we go. First off, we've got the Cloudfin Raptor. Now, Evolve, just to quickly cover this ability. Scales, obviously, as you see, every time something bigger comes into battle. Now, this card's great. It's 1 mana for a 0/1 with flying. Yes, sure, it's not going to get a swing in straight away, but Evolve is going to mean it keeps on growing. Not only that, because it's got an odd power toughness assignment, there's always going to be the chance of something being bigger than it in one or the other, because that's all it needs in Evolve, one or the other. Then we've got Simic Flux Mage. No, you can't actually respond with a trigger. Again, the best way of explaining this is the condition of the trigger has to be met before the trigger goes on the stack. Did a creature enter play? Is it bigger than me? Yes. Then the trigger goes on the stack. That means that you can't, as you cast a creature, tap it to move a token and then get another token. It doesn't work that way. But again, it's still an amazing creature because you can keep evolving it and moving the tokens around. Brilliant for Simic. Definitely something that you're going to want lots of in a draft. Experiment 1. 1-drops with Evolve are amazing because they grow really quickly. Not only that, to regenerate on this is brilliant. The art and the name is also brilliant. It's a wonderful card that you're going to want quite a few of in your draft. Great card. Crocanura. Reach, Evolve, 3 mana for a 1/3. Good mix. Good mix. Again, because it's a 1/3, it's going to grow quite quickly. Not only that, because it's got 3 toughness, it's going to help other things grow when it comes in. Evolve works quite nicely with this, and Reach, keep the flyers under control. Grab 4 of these, you're going to want them. What a giant bug! 7 mana for a 7/7 with Trample. Brilliant. Whenever it deals combat damage, copy it. Now this is amazing in so many ways. 1, because 7 mana for a 7/7 Trample's good. 2, because it copies every time it does damage to the player. Because it's got Trample, that's likely to happen often. You can have lots of them. And because the copies, they've got all of the abilities. And for 3, every time a copy comes into play, it's bringing a creature into play, which is going to evolve stuff, because it's a 7/7. So, it's evolving everything else, and spreading like mad. If you see one of these, you grab it so fast. It's an amazing card that you really want in your deck. Jaya Sage, 2/2. It's almost your bear, but not quite. 2 mana for 1/2 with Evolve. Again, because it's a awkward power toughness, it's going to evolve relatively decent. But that ability to gain mana for every counter on it is going to work out very nice. It's going to grow. It's going to give you decent mana, decent returns. It's well worth grabbing. You see any of these, you grab them. It's worth it. Serene Remembrance. Graveyard Hate in green. Sure, it's not really a lot of need for it, unless you think you can survive a mill. This card's a bit weird. Makes me think that there's going to be some more graveyard action going on later in the block, but in reality, in draft, you're probably not really going to need it. So it's probably not the best thing. Biovisionary. Bit of a weird one. It doesn't have Evolve, it's 3 mana for a 2/3. Got an interesting win condition built into it. Now, to actually get to use this, you're going to need lots of messing around, lots of interesting. It's not a draft card. It's not going to be much use in draft. You're not really going to have to get to use it. But on the other hand, I can see a lot of people making decks around this. You know, we've already seen at least one Dimir card that can copy, 2 Dimir cards, sorry, that can copy this. So it is possible, but it's not going to be a draft card, not unless you're ridiculously lucky. So don't worry about it in draft. Drakewing Krasis. It's a 3/1 flying trample. Bit of an odd one. It's going to trigger your evolve nicely because it's got 3 power. So it's going to trigger that evolve. It's going to do some decent damage with the flying trample. And it's going to get that in. But at the same point, it's going to be a little difficult to do anything else with. But it's a flying creature, so use it. It's common. Grab them. You're going to like them. Elusive Krasis, 0/4 unblockable. Again, 4 power 4 toughness means it's going to evolve other things. 0 power means it's got lots of opportunity to evolve itself. Definitely worth grabbing. Being unblockable, you're going to get some damage in. You're probably only going to get 3 evolves out of this, turning it into a 3/7. But because it's unblockable, it's going to get in there and get the damage done. It's a high pick. Grab it as soon as you can. Fathom Mage. This is the pre-release general. This is the one you're going to get. It's a nice enough little card all in all. It's a bit of a two-edged sword. You are paying 4 mana for a 1/1. Yes, it has evolve. Yes, it will grow. But you are paying 4 mana for a 1/1. But every time it evolves, you draw a card, which is going to give you lots more stuff. As soon as you can pull, if you get Flux Mage putting counters onto it, you're drawing cards. If you get things that can pull other counters around, you're drawing cards. It's going to be useful. If you see it, you're worth grabbing one, really. Mystic Genesis. It's a 5 mana counterspell. Very slow. Not going to see much use. You might see a few. Being a rare, it's going to be a bit unusual. Yes, sure, bringing an XX Ooze into play is useful, and yeah, sure, if you use it late game to stop a massive spell, you're going to end up evolving some of your creatures. Cool, but it is 5 mana for a counter spell, so it's not something you're going to see very often. Prime Speaker Zegana, guaranteed evolve triggers here. It's brilliant because it's always going to come into play one bigger than your biggest creature, so therefore force an evolve on things, force an evolve on everything. Wonderful. 6 mana, sure. Lots of card draw, brilliant. It's a lovely card. You are going to have trouble finding it, but it is going to be a lovely card. So you see it, grab it, because it will swing a game in your favour, because you'll draw loads of cards, you'll evolve everything, and you'll have a big creature. Shambleshark, the fish crab shark monstrosity. It pretty much sums up Simic in a nutshell. Looking at that, it is a 2/1 for 2 mana. Good cast. It's got evolve. It's going to grow. It's got flash. Now you're not likely to use the flash very often because it's also so small. You're very unlikely to flash it in to cause an evolve. If it was larger, you could flash it in, cause an evolve. Great. Because it's quite small, not going to happen. But all in all, you're probably best flashing it in their end step so it's ready in your turn to hit them with. Not a bad card. As a common, worth grabbing 4 of to be used in game. Urban Evolution, great card for limited, really useful. It's a little expensive on 5 mana, but at the same point you're getting an extra land in at turn, you're drawing 3 cards. Great card to get the ramp up, and it's certainly worth doing. So if you can see them, certainly worth trying. The Guildmage, brilliant. Look at that. You can remove your evolve counters from things so that you can then evolve them again. And not only that, you can then spend a turn doubling your evolve counters on everything. This Guildmage is wonderful. Again, as we've said all along, most of these Guildmages, you combine them with the bracers, they're even better. This Guildmage, brilliant. you definitely want to grab as many of these as possible. Really lets you play around with the evolve mechanic, lets you really jig around and see how you can do. So certainly worth picking up. Mirror entity on a sorcery. This is really. The thing is as well, the thing that a lot of people will forget is your counters. This changes your base power and toughness of your creatures. The counters still exist. So when we're dealing with Simic, this becomes insane. Because you build up all your counters, bang. Creatures you control, suddenly they're all 10/10s plus all their counters. Suddenly you have a massive army that can't be stopped. It's rare, you're not going to see it very often, but it really is worth picking up if you do, because it's a really nice card. The key rune. It's a key rune, pick them up. Again, becomes a 2/3 with hexproof. It interacts with most of your abilities, your evolve, your guildmage, flux mage, but the hexproof isn't that great. So it's not the most amazing key rune, but it's still useful for getting your mana sorted out. Proper Simic art on the blood breeding pool. Really nice art on that one. And the Simic Guildgate, which is amazing art on that Guildgate. So again, what can we say? Ooze Flux. In the words of Kenjy, this is amazeballs. It's a really good card. 4 mana for the enchantment, and then 2 mana to just move around your counters. And the great thing about this is, because of the way you move around your counters to become these green oozes, and you can do that as many times as you like, these green oozes will trigger evolve. You have 5 creatures, you pull 1 off each, throw it in, a 5/5, they all evolve by 1, you do it again, and you just keep doing it, and it's really, really good. This is a brilliant card, especially combined with other creatures. Combine this with the Guildmage and the doubling of counters, and you're just going to end up with several massive oozes, and then everything else being evolved up to the teeth. Really works very, very well with the way Simic plays. This is Simic's complete trick package rolled into one. Make something bigger, cool. Stop them from nuking your stuff with hexproof on everything, or return something to either your hand or your opponent's hand, which, let's be honest, when we're dealing with evolve, is a really useful thing. Throw something big up to your hand, cast it again, evolve everything else. Such a good charm, and as we've said before repeatedly, you're drafting. You're going to grab the charms. You just need to learn. We all need to just learn the best way of using these. Unexpected results. Speculate all you like, this thing's going to suck probably. It's one of those cards that looks like it could go one way or another, but it probably is going to suck. Especially in a draft situation. In a draft situation, things are so unusual and up in the air that you're not going to get the result you want. So it's probably something that's best avoiding and not using, but at the same point it's an interesting card if you can find a decent setup for it, but avoid it in draft most likely. Master Biomancer. Without any extra buffs, it makes all your creatures come in with an extra +1/+1 counter. Well, with 2 extra, sorry. Brilliant. Absolutely amazing. Now, when you can move +1 counters onto it, it's just going to get even better and even better. Good mana cost for it. Yes, it's a mythic rare, and it's a mythic rare for a reason, because it is an amazing card. You're going to see you're not going to see many of these, but if you do see it, try and grab it, because it really works with Simic very, very well. And here's the green avatar. what can we say about this? 7 mana for a 6/8, again 6/8, very good for helping you get your evolves off, making sure that you've always got one thing higher than the other to get the right evolve level in. Got reach, smacks out all those flyers out the air, and then you've got its ability. It's going to be even better in a multiplayer environment, obviously. In your draft, you kill something, you get a forest. You can't argue with that. For the mana cost, it's certainly something worth picking up if you can find it. Admittedly, fetching a forest when you're at 7 land to be able to cast this isn't going to be that relevant, but if you've used trickery, like use the mana generating elf to get it out early, could still be useful. And let's be honest, you're destroying a permanent of your opponents. You can't argue. Certainly a nice one to draw. Don't jump screaming at it, but there might be better, but it's still a nice card. Miming Slime. Cheap creature late in the game. You don't want to waste it early in the game, making it a 3/3. You wait till your creatures are quite large, throw it down late in the game, get something quite big, get 6/6, get 7/7. 6/6 for 3 mana, who can ever argue with that? So hold it off till later in the game, then pop it then, but it's going to be a good card all round. Simic Manipulator. Now, this is an interesting one. It's got Evolve, 0/1, it's going to grow. 3 mana, cool. But the fact that you could pull the +1 counters off of it to gain control of creatures of your opponents is very useful. Especially when you start to find ways to move the counters around. Move counters onto him, or get extra evolve counters. You can start stealing interesting cards from your opponents quite nicely. This is probably what Gruul were worried about when they created their charm. It's a nice card. It's certainly one to pick up if you can find it. It fits nicely in the evolve mechanics either way. Worst case, it grows into a big creature and it smacks your opponent around. You can't argue with that. Either way, it's something nice. Clinging Anemones. It's an expensive defender. 4 mana for a 1/4. It's what you're used to, really. But the evolve mechanic is going to make it good. The fact that it's a 1/4 again, it's likely to evolve something when it comes into play. So it's useful in both ways. It's a common. Pick up 4 of them if you can. Keeps you locked down. Make sure your opponent doesn't trample you, and it'll keep you going. Frilled Oculus. It's a great aggressive creature. It's a 1/3 early. Because it's a 1/3, again, it's likely to evolve other stuff. You can pump it. Yes, for a common, it's pretty good. There are better commons, but let's be honest, it's going to help you pump everything else in evolve. You probably see them, so you might as well pick up a few. It's not too bad. Adaptive Snapjaw. He's a 6/2, which really is going to evolve stuff no matter what's going on, which is what you want. He is a little expensive at 5 mana, but because he has evolved himself, you pop him down, you cast anything with 3 toughness, suddenly he's evolved. He's a 7/3. You know, it's a good common to grab. Grab it if you see it. It's going to trigger. All you need is a couple of evolve triggers and you've got an 8/4, and then you're laughing. Alpha Authority can combo with Madcap skills for a limited homebrew Invisible Stalker to do some really stupid things, but that's not going to be very often, really. It's a bit of an interesting one. It's mainly, it can probably mean more Gruul than anything else. Again, yeah, if you can, combo it with Madcap skills because you're laughing then. It is a 2-for-1, but because it's got hexproof, that makes it a little more interesting. And it's good for getting in with a big creature, especially something with trample. It is probably more Gruul than Simic though. Burst of Strength. It's not the best combat trick. It's a +1/+1 counter on a target and untap it. Sure, it's useful if you're being attacked, and you just want to be able to block, great. It's useful for some of your other creatures that you want to be throwing the +1 counters on, so that you can then do other abilities, sure, but it's not the most amazing combat trick. It is cheap, it is a common, you'll probably end up picking a couple up, but they're nothing really to write home about. Crown Ceratoc. Again, the 4-drop with trample for a 4/3. It's going to evolve stuff, but the kicker really is that secondary ability. Each creature you control with a +1 counter has trample. We're playing Simic, everything's got +1 counters, that's what we want. We want lots of +1 counters. This instantly changes up the battlefield. Makes a massive difference. For an uncommon, you want lots of these. You want as many of these as you can find. They are brilliant. Forced Adaptation. I don't need to say much more apart from get it. Yes, it's a 2-for-1, and yes, we're always against them, but it grows those counters quickly. And you pop that on, certain of your creatures. The elf that gives you extra mana, the creature stealing creature, throw that on there, you're growing those counters even faster. You know that you're going to get what you want quicker. It's a nice enchant, it is common, you'll find them flying around, but it is a 2-for-1. It is a slow build, we don't like them, but if you can find the right situation, it might be useful. This is the green using gate card. Tapped on target gate, not amazing. 2 mana for a 2/1, okay, sure, it'll probably evolve something. It's effectively a bear. It can be, if you can get it out early, you can use it to get your gate, to get your mana quickly. Green, ramping up quickly, sure. It's good for that effect more than anything else. Hindervines, blows out fog, really good. Prevent all combat damage that wouldn't be dealt by creatures without the counters. All of your stuff's got counters. That's your plan. You're planning to get virtually everything with counters. So you throw this down, and you know that your creatures are going to die, but you're going to deal silly damage. It's worth grabbing a couple if you can. Really very helpful card. Lane Denizen, probably the best Denizen of the cycle. Purely because it works so well. You want to be picking up as many of these as you can. Yeah, they are a little expensive, but they're 2/3s, so they're going to evolve something hopefully when they come in. But then every time something green comes in, you just pop a counter wherever you want it. Just keep popping those counters. You want to be getting as many of these as you can, just so that you've got those counters flying around. It's really useful. Naturalize, it's your classic Naturalize. There aren't many uses for it in this set. There's a few, but not many. Definitely a sideboard card more than anything. Really nice art though, really shows what happens when you mess with nature. Love the art, but it is definitely a sideboard. Predator's Rapport. Flat out life gain is bad. 3 mana for just saying I want some extra life. It is not that useful. Yes, Simic's not that aggressive, but it's all about big creatures. Yes, sure, you can get some big numbers out of it, and in a draft, you'll probably end up with 1 or 2 of these in a draft. But you want to be smacking your opponent in the face with big creatures. You don't want to be wasting 3 mana on this when you could be using it to get another creature that causes more evolve. You want to be in there hitting, so if you can, you don't want to use it. You want to be getting more creatures instead. Scarab, 5 mana for a 4/5. It's hopefully going to evolve something, being a 4/5. Yes, it's got the secondary ability, but that's not going to happen very often. Your opponents aren't going to have that many artifacts or enchantments, so you're not going to see that coming into play very often. Yes, okay, sometimes they're going to have something decent that they don't want you to destroy, so you'll end up getting the damage through. It's an uncommon, you'll probably pick up a couple, but it's a good evolver and a nice solid creature all in all. Spire Tracker. It's your typical annoying green creature. It's a 1/1, can't be blocked, really. The frustrating thing is, as much as it's a nice card, and it fits in quite a few decks, it doesn't really fit if you're trying to go for a heavy evolve deck. Yes, it's nice, goes to the bottom of the curve, good for drafting, not amazing for an evolve deck because it doesn't really get in there, but certainly worth looking at for a draft. Tower defense does what it says on the tin, really. Useful for defending, useful for getting rid of flyers. Probably a sideboard until you realise your opponent's got flyers though, because otherwise it's just not that useful. Then we have Verdant Haven. Here we have an actual example of tacked on life gain making something better. You've got the enchant land that doubles the mana whenever you can't use it. Wonderful. 3 mana for a double mana whenever you use the land. Cool, we like that. But when it comes into play, it gives you 2 life. Even better. Probably worth picking a couple up. Again, it'll help you ramp up a bit quicker, help you get to those really big stonky creatures quicker. And the extra life can't be snuffed at. Wildwood Rebirth. Instant speed, raise dead. 2 mana, instant speed, raise dead. At the end of combat, their end phase, grab something, get ready to cast it next turn. Really nice and simple. You probably want a couple of these, whether you put them in a Gruul or a Simic deck, not quite sure, depends on what else you find. But as a common, you're going to have a couple of them knocking around. They're not terrible cards. Hydroform, good for finishing a game. Maybe. Not amazing. Not normally a fan of turning lands into creatures. Makes them more susceptible to dying. But good if your opponent doesn't have any reach or any flyers. Get that extra bits of damage in. Helps with the alpha strike at the end. Not a terrible card, but not something amazing though. Nimbus Swimmer. Giant Skyworm. Fantastic way to spend all your mana and trigger your evolves, because you decide how big you want it. It's a brilliant card for triggering evolves. It's a brilliant card when combined with, for example, your Guildmage, because it will come in with an extra charge on it. It's just a really nice all-round card. You decide how big you want it. So, as an uncommon, grab as many of them as you see. They're really nice. The only issue with it, obviously, is it does leave itself open to be countered by the frontline medic, but this is a rare situation. Bioshift. Now this is one of those wonderful, wonderful cards that lets you really mess with the +1 counters. You can pull the +1 counters off something, put it onto something else. Do that for your mana generating elf or your creature stealing mage. You can pull it off of an evolved creature onto a non-evolved creature to then allow your evolved creature to evolve some more. Especially for the mana cost, worth picking up 4 of these just to really mess around mid-combat, see what's going on. So, especially mid-combat to really mess things up, certainly worth picking them up. Merfolk of the Depths. 6 mana for a 4/2 with flash. It's expensive. Yes, it's a 4/2. Yes, you can maybe get some smart evolves mid-combat off, but it's expensive. It's a bit too expensive for only 2 toughness, to be perfectly honest. So it probably won't see a lot of play. That's just our opinion, though. And that is it. That wraps up our set. We've gone over every card now. Good luck everyone at the pre-releases and your drafts. We will be back with the next set as soon as it's released. We plan hopefully next time to actually be in the studio rather than just listening to me and my terrible microphone quality. Thanks very much.